Well, how about if we talk about money for a couple minutes here? I'm going to talk to you. Let's see. Thank you. This guy here, he's going to build a big business. Do you know that? He's just about ready to get started. Well, I put some notes together from some people that have made a lot of money, and there's been a lot of talk this weekend of the 95% bracket. It's really interesting. If you want to be average, then look around at what the 95% does, and then just duplicate what they do, and then you'll be somewhere right in there. If you don't want to be average, then you look around at what everybody else is doing, and you don't do anything that resembles it. People that, it's kind of interesting, we grow up in a world that the whole thing is financed and it's all on credit cards all over the world, I guess. And Valerie and I, before I met Valerie, I used to own a company called National Speed Equipment. When I was 19 years old, I took some savings I had, $4,000 or $5,000, whatever it was, something like that, and I bought a bunch of inventory from a company named CP, which may or may not still be around. It was Speed Parts. Went down, rented a building, and opened up this store. My dad and I painted up a sign that said National Speed Equipment. Opened up the store, put the inventory in it, and I was in business selling speed parts. We had a race car, used to travel around and race and all that kind of stuff. Well, make a long story short, I sold that business to somebody, and when I did, my attorney failed to notarize one piece of paper that left me liable for everything that business did for a period of about 7 months. Is when I found out about it after I left, and that pretty well wasn't good by that time. 7 months later, I had over 20 lawsuits against me, and we biffed it pretty bad financially, and I ended up, all the suppliers knew what had happened, so even though we went to court and we lost, some of those suppliers says, okay, well, we're going to still go after this other guy and try to get the money, and if we do, then we're not going to come back and get you. But we did end up having to pay a few things, and at that point in my life, I was working, I'd taken a job somewhere, and I was working about 100 hours a week, if I remember right. That's quite a few hours. I was making $3 and something an hour, and had a house payment of $300. And so Valerie and I had about $3 a week for entertainment. And at that point in my life, Valerie and I decided that we would never put ourselves in a financial position again where we could ever have anybody hanging over us, controlling us again. So we came up with this little idea. We said, you know what? We will never buy anything ever again on credit. Because if we can't afford to pay for it, then we really can't afford it. And so that's where we began a long time ago, 1975, with that idea. Over a period of time, I've come to find out that there's very few people that understand anything about money, and most people keep themselves broke their whole life. And they have interest payments all the time. They get to the point they have such a misunderstanding about it that when they pay off something that's $100 a month, then before it even gets paid off, they're trying to figure out what else they can go charge that takes up that $100 a month. And it's just absolutely insane. It's pretty insane when somebody at 65 years old can't come up with $100 in cash as easy as somebody could at 18 years old. Something's wrong with that picture. And so what I've done is I got a lot of this information from Dexter, listening to him talk. I got some of it from Tim Bryan, who's a great guy with money. I got some from Don Wilson. I collected some ideas from some people around the world to give you some basics on how to get out of debt. And if you're not in debt, you may be sitting there saying, well, I don't want to hear about money. Yeah, you do. Because if you don't understand how to help somebody else get out of debt, then you're always going to pay the price on that. Because if you develop a group of broke distributors, they are not going to have the ability to dream and have the vision like you develop a group of distributors that are on their way to getting out of debt. And there's a big difference. So I'm just going to throw some things up at you. I don't know if we're going to have time to write all this down or not. I'll sell these notes for 20 grand. I'm just kidding. They're worth more than that. Anyway, Learn how to turn your financial waste into more money in your pocket. Turn yourself into a self-confident, competent money manager. You want to become respected by your leaders because you are a great money manager. Become carefully disciplined and committed to turn your financial situation around. And I'm not trying to talk down to you like that you're all broke. I hope you're not. I just know that most people are. You want to turn everything around, and you're going to become financially independent. One of the biggest things that you first need to do is you need to entertain the possibility, if necessary, that you're willing to take a few steps backwards to get your feet on the ground in order to move forward. Most people are never willing to do that. They never know they're supposed to do that. They feel like they're losing ground. You should never be embarrassed if you're in a situation where you have to do that. You should be very proud that you're willing to stand up, take a few steps back, regroup, and move ahead. In most cases, financial condition is not a function of income. It's more a function of how your mind works. Financial ignorance is the inability to control and create financial progress. In other words, you just don't know what to do. A lot of people don't. Very few people handle their money well. I mean, how many people do you run into when you're moving them a kit that have the money? It's neat when you do, but a lot of people don't. They have to really squeeze it out. And anyway, I said this a little earlier, but doing more of what doesn't work won't make it work any better, no matter how good your intentions are. It's an amazing thing. Imagine what it will be like for you to become unstoppable financially. Taking control first means that you must identify where you're at, be honest with yourself, and then ask yourself a question. Do you or do you not want to change the way it is financially? Dreams are destinations. Your money goals are just little markers of accomplishment along the way that allow you to define the path in order to get there. Financial control is a connective link between your dreams and your accomplishment, and that's how you get paid. The thing that's very important is it's important for you to set up an office, and it doesn't mean you have to go buy an office building. It doesn't mean you have to throw your kids out of a bedroom, make them sleep in a tent in the backyard, and take the bedroom for an office. What it means is somewhere in your house, you have to put together somewhere. Don, what he did a long time ago is he took a piece of plywood and he cut it into a triangle shape and nailed it into a wall, and that was his office. That was his desk. You've got to have somewhere that you can call your own, that you can put your stuff, and hopefully it'd be even a nice little benefit if you can go somewhere and shut the door and be able to make phone calls and have your own stuff there. You need to get a calculator and all those little things so that you're in business. You need to get yourself a tax planner of some kind. You talk to your upline, see what they're promoting to you, so that you can keep track of your taxes. I have even heard of people that have gotten clear to emerald or diamond and did not understand that you have to pay income tax. So take care of your taxes. We recently got audited, and I like this. We got audited, and a guy came in and sat in our office for 2 days and brought his little computer and went through everything. And we have a full-time bookkeeper in our office that takes all the information and transmits it. She communicates with Dex's tax people, Cope Elliott Marsh, and they do whatever they do. But I was really excited for the fact that this auditor was in the office for 2 days, asking questions, going through things, and they were going to do us for, I think, 2 years it was. And he said to me, he interviewed me on the second day. I wasn't even there or present or anything. Second day I went over and he interviewed me, and he says, your records are in such good shape that we're not even going to go into that other year. And then he left and he's never called us back. So I think the audit's still open, but they haven't communicated with us now for months and months. You don't want to mess yourself up on taxes. I know that you don't want to pay them, but you got to get that part of it together. A tax planner is a real simple way to do it. Real easy, and they're not very expensive. Always do your bank statement within 24 hours of when you get it. Never leave that bank statement laying around for days before you do it. See, discipline is one of the most important ingredients ever of getting a handle on money or anything in life. And that's why it's very important that you do that. Prepare yourself a financial statement. I'm going to give you a real simple way to do this. Make yourself a sheet with some columns in it. And over here, in number 1, put item. Spell that in. Put the total due, which I guess is the balance. Put the interest rate is in the 3rd column. And the value in the 4th column. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a list of everything you own. Now here's a very interesting thing. We're going to put the item, we're going to take every item that you have. House, car, every single thing that you have. We're even going to take and lump your furniture. You're going to make a guesstimate of how much your furniture is worth in your home. And all these things. You're going to have to take a little bit of time to do this. It's important that you do this because remember the belief window? When you see yourself making progress and you can see it month by month by month, then you'll gain an incredible amount of confidence in how to deal with this. You put the total due. If you got 2 things called assets and liabilities. An asset is something that you own that has value, and a liability is something that you owe money on. You may have the item, it might be a car, but it could be a liability because you might owe more on the car than it's worth. Some people do. Creative financing. But anyway, so you put the total due, the interest rate that it's at, and the value. Now the value is an interesting thing. You used to own a bunch of real estate. Well, I guess we still do, but used to own a bunch of apartment buildings and things. And now here's where you mess up. When you determine the value of something, like let's say that you went and you had $15,000 worth of furniture sitting in your house. As soon as that furniture is delivered and it's now sitting in your house, how much is it worth? $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, right? But if I asked you what's the value of that furniture, what would you say? $15,000. It's not worth 15 grand. I had an apartment building, had an appraisal on it for $194,000, had it in my hand. This is real estate was in a backslide where we were, and 194, 192,000, whatever it was, had the thing in my hand. You know, I couldn't sell that thing from the time I had that appraisal done and trying to sell that thing. I could not sell that apartment building for $85,000. It dropped in value that quick. Now, how much was it worth? Almost nothing. I couldn't sell it. So what was the value of it? I don't know, 60 grand? But if I was going to put it on a sheet somewhere to make me look good, what would I have said? 192, right? Well, if I couldn't sell that thing for $60,000, or let's say 85, plus I've got a 7% real estate commission on it, plus I've got closing costs and all these things, well, that just chops off the real value of what I'm talking to you about. So when you when you list a value out on something, that value has to be what you believe that you could sell that thing for and have left over in your hand in a period of about 60 days or less. That's the real value of what you got. You follow me? So you list all this out. Now, what you want to list, we're going to prioritize these bills because up here we're going to have everything that you owe on, and then maybe later on down here we're going to have all the assets you have, and we're going to end up with a total over here on the very bottom, and that's going to be your net worth. You know, it's assets minus liabilities, and that's what you're worth. And I will tell you, there's some of you in here right now will be in the negative. It's okay. Well, it's for now. But anyhow, so we list all these things out. We're going to prioritize these things because, let's see, what did I forget here? I know what I forgot. Payment. Let's put payment on there. Because what a lot of people do, they end up with all these little bills all over the place. They got 15, 20 bills they owe on, and they don't know what to do. So every month they just pay a little out on all these. Well, here's an organized way how you can get rid of all these little bills. You list the smallest note. We're going to prioritize these with which ones you pay off first. You list the smallest note with the largest payment first. Smallest note, largest payment first. Remember that every dollar that you ever spend changes your net worth. If you buy a donut, what does it do? Lowers your net worth. If you buy something that is going to improve your financial condition, like let's say you buy a tape or a ticket to summer leadership or something like that, you're moving in the direction of increasing your net worth. Everything you do changes it one direction or the other. Prioritize what you pay. This will be controversial. And now you know what I get a kick out of when I talk about these things? I get a kick out of people. This comes from the way multimillionaires think. And I get a kick out of people that work a whole year to make as much money as some of these people where this came from work for 1 or 2 or 3 days, and those people want to argue with anyway. Prioritize what you pay by house payment being number 1, or apartment or whatever. House got to take care of number 1. Number 2, utilities such as electric and heat. Number 3, car. And number 4, health insurance. Now, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but if you change that around, and let's say you put health insurance as number 1, but you didn't have a car or a house or utilities, but you'd have health insurance. So I hope you understand that. Okay, make an additional sheet for each liability. Now this sounds like a lot of work. I don't know, you want to be a multimillionaire? This is nothing. You make an additional sheet for each liability, and then every time that you make a payment on that liability, you go to that sheet, you write it in, you change the balance or the total left owed, and you end up with another figure that you see with your head, goes into your mind, that you are making progress, and you can see it. Now, if there's not enough money at the end of the month, then you figure out what the smallest possible payments are on everything you've got. And if they're not small enough, then you call the creditor and try to negotiate a smaller payment. Now listen to this careful, because if you get anything out of kilter in what I'm telling you, this is going to mess you up. If there's not enough money at the end of the month, then you figure your smallest possible payment is on every item. If all those payments combined are not small enough, then you call up the creditors and get a lower payment. In other words, it's better to keep everybody happy and your integrity's on the line. It's better to be paying them something rather than choose a few to pay and tell the other ones, I ain't paying you. You get that? Pay all the minimum payments. Now listen to this. The remainder that you have left over after paying all the minimum payments, you start hammering off the number 1 prioritized note, which is the smallest amount due with the largest payment. You take the remaining money that you have left over and you begin to pay that item that you prioritized. And every month you take every bit of excess money that you have left over, and the object of the game is to hammer off that first note. Let's just take an idea here. I don't know what it'd be. Let's say furniture, total due $1,000, interest rate 300% is about what they charge. I don't know. Let's say 15%. I don't know if that's accurate or not. The value $300. Payment, smallest note with the biggest payment. Let's say the payment's $100. Okay, I'm not even putting any thought into this. I don't know if this makes sense. Anyhow, so you got all these things listed out. You pay a minimum payment on everything. You take the gross amount of money you have left over and you pay it on this bill every month, month after month after month after month. Because as soon as you get that gone, then you've got the second bill on here, and I don't know what it is, but now you've got another $100 on top of what you've got left over at the end of the month to go start hammering this number 2 away with to get rid of it. And you pick up momentum. And what it does to you is there's nothing, well, there is things, but it's going to feel so good when mentally you've got to a point where you know you can win because you got a plan and you're starting to make headway. Now, the interest rate does not prioritize a bill until the balance is around $3,000. You follow what I'm saying there? Here's why. You got a balance of $3,000, let's say $1,000. You got a balance of $1,000 here, and whether that's 12% or whether that's 18% isn't that huge of a difference on a small amount of money. When you get up into bigger amounts, then it becomes a factor. But it's more important to prioritize a bill with the smallest amount, the smallest balance with the largest payment is more important. It overrides the interest rate prioritization until it gets to about $3,000. Am I making any sense? I don't know if this comes, okay, all right. Okay, never consolidate a loan. I mean loans. Never consolidate unless it is absolutely the very, very last resort that you can do. If you do consolidate, then never, ever buy anything again until you pay off that consolidation. Because as soon as you do that, let's say we've got too many payments here. We ain't got enough money to, let's say the payments add up to $3,000 a month, but we only have $2,500 coming in. So we go consolidate. And now that takes our payment from $3,000 down to $15,000. Or I'm sorry, it takes down to $1,500, okay? We used to be having $3,000 worth of bill. We had $2,500 worth of income. Now we consolidate. Now we have a $1,500 a month payment going out. We have $1,000 left over, right? You know what most people do with that $1,000? They spend it. And let me tell you exactly what that does. You are in a downward spiral and you're kissing your little buns goodbye, but you don't realize it because after all, you got $1,000 in your hand. Always take that extra money and pay off that consolidated loan with everything that you've got. How long should you take a car loan out for? One payment. Okay. How long do they loan money on cars now? 5 years? 7 years? How much do you think? What's the average price of a car now? $15,000. Okay. $15,000 car at the end of 7 years. What's it worth? What is the interest rate on a car loan? What is it? 7 or 8? Okay. Well, pay a car off in 2 years. It's about what you should do. I mean, if you can't pay cash for it, pay a car off in 2 years. Now listen carefully, because here's what you'll say. You'll say, but you don't understand. I couldn't afford that car if I had to pay it off in 2 years. Duh. Okay. That's kind of funny, but a lot of people say this. They say, but you don't understand, for my business I need the write-off. Oh. Don't you understand that you're better off not having the debt than the write-off? Okay, I love that one. Never finance a luxury, only necessities. It's okay to charge a necessity. It is not okay to charge a luxury. When you do something that is a luxury, you need to pay cash for it. Is a car a necessity or a luxury? Most of the time it's a necessity, right? What's a boat? A boat's a luxury? So should you charge it or should you pay cash for it? But what about the ones that say, well, I just don't think that I want to wait that long to save up that money to buy that boat, so I think I'm going to go finance it. McFly, I'm trying to teach you something. Will you listen? You get really disciplined after a while, hopefully. And I remember telling Valerie, we bought a big screen television years ago. And we don't hang around watching TV all the time, but sometimes late at night or something we might want to watch a video, or we view a lot of videos for functions and different things like that. And I set a goal. I says, we're going to save $300,000 in savings before we can afford to buy a big screen television. I figured that was good. And I think we saved longer than that before we bought it. Okay? But anyway, the breadwinner of the family should always control the checkbook. It is important to know where you are all the time, and the man needs to monitor it daily. Here's why. Not that the women can't do a good job with it. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what has to happen, see, when a guy gets to the point where he goes and he works, and his check goes into the checking account, and the lady deals with it, and she pays bills and all that, which is what most people do. I don't agree with it, but that's what most people do. Then what happens is that guy never really feels like the man, because he never knows how much he's making. He never knows. All he's doing is like a dead fish going to work, coming home. That's all he does. Do you follow what I'm trying to tell you? You got to know where you're at. You got to monitor it. You've got to see progress. It's so important in your head for you to see progress. Because if you don't, you lose all the sense of being the breadwinner or the man. Now, is there anything... No, I'm getting into that stuff. Never mind. Okay. Let's see. Grocery shop after you eat. And only buy what you have on your list. Okay, really. You'd be surprised, I'll bet you, if you figured out how much money is spent at grocery stores by people going shopping, and they don't really need that, but the way it's displayed in the store, and it just looks, so they grab it and throw it in. Well, you're not in control. You're letting your emotions control it. Okay. How long should you finance a home? You should finance a home for 15 years at the max. Unless you were at an all-time interest rate low, and the rest, say you got a 4% loan somehow, and the rest of the world was at 7 or 8%, then to have long-term financing may be a smart move. But as a general rule, forget the times we're in, as a general rule, you should never finance a home longer than 15 years, and it should be with no prepayment penalty if you should decide to pay it off, and which you should. Okay? Remember this, the payment is 16% higher on a 15-year note than a 30. And after 10 years, you've paid off 45% of the house instead of 5%. Did y'all hear that? So for 16% more money going out, you'll pay the house off twice as fast, is what it boils down to. Now, if you have a 30-year note, what are some of the things that you can do that's real smart to combat that? You have a 30-year note on a home. What you do is every month when you pay the payment, you find out what next month's principal payment should be. On a 30-year note, on a house payment, how much of that payment goes to the principal? Very little, right? Just a small amount. You find out what that amount is. Have the bank print you a schedule and send it to you. And you pay that on top of your payment every month. The end result is you turn that loan into a 15-year note, and you'll pay on it for 15 years less. It's a lot smarter way to fly. Don't refinance your house to a lower interest rate until you sit down and figure out how long it will take to recoup the cost of generating that new loan. For example, I've had guys that they've got a 10 or 11 or 12% loan on their house from back in the days when we had that, and they're going to refinance, but they're going to sell their house in a year. Well, if you put it all out on paper, it's a bad move. They lose money by refinancing the house and selling the house in a year. It's a bad move. But if they're going to keep the house for a long time, it may be a smart move. So what you have to do is you have to sit down and figure out, what will the closing costs be? What does it cost to generate the loan? All the added stuff that goes on to that to make that happen. And if that's $5,000, Then you have to take the new payment and the old payment, and let's say the difference is $300, and then you have to ask yourself, how many months will I have to keep this house before I get back to even? And if it isn't enough months, you're not going to keep the house that long, don't do that. You all with me? Okay. Okay. Never make a major purchase without sleeping on it. And that doesn't mean like if you're thinking about buying a car, going down, throwing a sleeping bag out on it and going to sleep. Okay? Don't make a major purchase without sleeping on it and thinking about it. Most people will make it on emotion instead of logic. Do not make a major purchase on emotion. Do it on logic. If it's really the right thing to do, it'll still be really the right thing to do next week, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. I could tell you some stories that blow your mind. I mean, I guess I told you a couple this weekend about like that sports car being 19 years and that coach being 13 years. And you know what? I thought about buying a pickup truck. I had a 79 Chevy four-wheeler, probably worth $3,500, I guess. And I thought about buying a new pickup truck for probably 6 years before I bought one. Y'all hear me? 6 years. Could I afford it? Yeah, I think so. Think about this. When you get down to so much money in cash, what is that amount that after you're under that makes you nervous? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? Is it $500,000? Or is it $1 million? When you get under $1 million in cash, you just don't feel good anymore. What would you like to set a goal to get to so that you always had that buffer no matter what? We have to have a lot because our checking account can change by $500,000 to $1 million in one day. It's like that. Always remember that if you invest in your business first class, it'll always take care of you first class. And listen to this, when you begin to weaken your investment into your business, it's like this summer leadership coming up. When you begin to weaken your investment into your business, you're writing your ticket for failure. Let me throw this other one at you. I had a guy come to me one time, he was in construction. And he comes to me and he says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a new truck for being in construction. I think he was doing bricks or something. I'm thinking about buying a new truck. What do you think? I laid the finances out. I looked at it for a minute. I says, well, what are you going to be? You going to be an emerald or are you going to be in construction? He says, I want to be an emerald. I says, if you really mean that and you're really headed for emerald, then I would not go buy a new truck to reinforce the fact that I'm going to be there going in that direction. I would go buy something that would barely work, that would work, but just get me by, and I'd take any excess pennies I had and I would put it in the direction of being an emerald. The guy went and bought a new truck. So what does that tell me? He's putting his money and his commitment in a direction that was not going to make him an emerald. And so when you start looking at things that you're doing and how you're spending your money and the things that you're buying, whether it be furniture, trucks, whatever it may be, you're going to ask yourself the question, am I spending this money to reinforce that I'm going to have a job and keep that job going for the rest of my life? Or am I spending money to reinforce that we're chasing our dream? Because one of them is going to keep you broke and the other one will make you rich. Now, this is crazy. A lot of you want to argue on this one. You guys need to go out in the garage and take that old piece of plywood that's got the corner cut off it and all those little short 2x4s, and you need to really get rid of all that stuff. Because what happens is, women are going to be going, yeah, I told you. Okay. When you are a junk saver and you save everything just in case some decade you're going to need it, then it's a mental thing that you're developing here, and it's an attitude that you're trying to hold on to everything you can because you know you're never going to have the ability to go buy what you need. And it's an attitude that you create. But you know what? If you take that stuff and you get rid of it and you charge forward, and you know if you get to the point you need something that bad, you will buy it, and you start focusing on the future and where you're going and the vision and the dream and everything else, it's a different attitude than when you say 44 pieces of wood that all combined together might make up one 8-foot 2x4. You follow me? Okay? Get rid of that. Do some house cleaning. Clean your attitude up. Dream. Move forward. If you bounce a check to somebody, there isn't any other way to describe it other than the fact that you lied. You flat lied. And it's not good. Don't do that. When you sign a check, it is your word. It is your integrity. And don't ever do that. Don't ever have that reputation. And if you do have a problem with a check and you cut it to your upline and you know that you find out there's a problem on it and you know about it before they do, you better get your little buns on that phone and you better call them up and you better be apologizing even if it is not your fault. And you better let them know in advance. Hey, I'm sorry. This check's not going to clear. I had a situation. I'll fix it. I'm on the way with the money. I'll handle it. Don't be one of those people that just sit around, oh, it's no big deal. It'll just bounce their check to their upline, to their upline, to their upline, to their upline, and it'll break Amway. Okay? So, anyway, a savings account is a real must. Very, very important. You might say, well, Randy, you don't understand because I don't have enough money left over right now to put it in savings. No, let me tell you something. A savings account is a must. Not because you're going to accumulate money. It is a must to teach yourself discipline. Even if it's only $5 or $10, but it's something that needs to be done consistently over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You got to remember something, folks. What makes people successful is right here between these two sides of their head. It's all in attitude and belief. So a lot of these little things, you're conditioning yourself so that you're thinking straight and right, so that you can think like the guys that win. It's real simple. Always run with your head on purchases and not your heart. Another thing very, very important is this. What some people do, some of you in here, this will be a revelation to you. You got a product account that you cut your checks and you deal with a product account. And maybe you have products and tools lumped together in one account. And what some of you are doing is you're getting your orders in from your group and you're calling your upline with those orders and putting an order in. And then on product pickup day, you're going over and you're picking them up and you're cutting a check and you're giving the check, you're coming home, your guys are stopping by, they're picking up from you, they're cutting you a check, and your money goes away. And you're always saying, this account is upside down again. What you failed to do was to understand that now, instead of going to the grocery store and writing a check out of your normal checking account and buying the things you need, that now it's coming out of your product account because you're picking up and taking out of that order things that you need and you're going to use in your house, and you can't understand how come you're always broke in that account and something's wrong in this business taking all my money and everything else. You'd be amazed at how many people do that. So learn how, if you're going to operate that way, and I'm not here to counsel you to operate that way, you check with your upline on how you should do it. But if you're in that situation, then try figuring out what your order is and cutting a personal check from your account into that account for what you buy from yourself. That way you got a true monitor of what's happening across the board as this product flow is going through. It can't be in the negative, it's a wash. But you'd be surprised how many ladies get negative about the business because they keep losing money. They're not losing it, they just forgot they got to pay for stuff. Okay? I mean, really. Now, if you have to pay interest on a credit card, then get a credit card that is real low on interest. And another thing is you never should use a credit card unless you plan on paying things off at the end of the month, unless It happens to be for a business investment that makes sense to do it. Extended warranties, check them out real carefully. I know that the industry has changed a lot, but there was a time when an extended warranty was one of the biggest rip-offs in America. We used to sell extended warranties in the car business for, I can't even remember how much they were, $399, and we'd pay like $29.95 for them. And then when anything happened to the guys that bought them, they'd never pay for anything anyway. They'd always argue with them. Now, there's been laws and a lot of things have changed now, but when you buy an extended warranty, make sure it really is a value, because it's possible that it isn't. Just a little warning on that. The industry payback on that used to be 4.9%. So what does that tell you? You understand what I just said? Okay, listen to this. Common sense with money is not common knowledge. In fact, common sense is very uncommon. There's hardly anyone that has any. I hope you do. If you have a negative cash flow, this is amazing. If you have a negative cash flow, it simply means that you cannot afford to live the lifestyle that you're currently living. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, but sometimes we have to be like, listen up. Out of your life, and then cut a few more things out that you don't think you can live without. And it's amazing. I'll tell you something. What'll make you a master dreamer and what'll help you with a vision and a dream so much is the fact that when you start getting rid of some bills and you get things paid for and you start watching a savings account grow, you will not believe your ability, how it changes in being able to go out and develop the dream and inspire people rather than only talk to them. Huge difference. And you can do it. Write down all the things that you spend money on during a month. It's really funny. You go to the grocery store, write all this money down. Forget all this here, but write it down. If you go out to the greasy truck or whatever they call them and you get a donut, write that down. And if you write down every penny that you spend all month and you really take a look at it, I'm sure that it will shock you on where a chunk of your dough goes. Read some books. One of them is called Your Millionaire's Common Sense Guide to Wealth. It's by Dexter Yeager. One of them is called The Richest Man in Babylon. And ask your upline for any other books that you can think of that might help you learn how to handle money. Is money everything in the world? No, it isn't. But you see, you're dealing with money every day of your life, 24 hours a day, in values and everything that you're talking about. And food, clothes, kids' education, everything you do. It's one of the most important things for you to ever get a handle on. Only put enough money into your lifestyle to motivate you, not your group. I remember the story Dexter telling about one time he had out at his farmhouse. That's the big brick building with the white columns. That's not a farmhouse, but it's out at his farm. And he had a new El Camino. Y'all know what that is? It's like a Chevelle truck. And he had a new El Camino. This was years ago, and he had a guy out there and had a bunch of people out there for a Pearl Club or something one day, and a guy walked over there and he said, "Hey, that El Camino," he's talking to Dex, says, "that El Camino doesn't motivate me at all." And Dex says, "It's not supposed to motivate you. The El Camino motivates me. I motivate you." Do you understand what I mean by that? As long, you don't need to say, "Well, I think the group needs to see us buy a Rolls Royce." No. What the group needs to see you do is have an incredible attitude. And the group needs, not by what you drive, but the drive within you is what the group needs to see. You don't have to go buying junk to show them any kind of success or anything else. At certain points, some things help and some tools work, and it is the right move to make, but don't you ever worry about it. Your upline will say, "Okay, look, you've got to go buy a Rolls Royce." That's a joke. Anyway. Become an expert at learning and teaching inexpensive fun. See, we could go out and we could go drive or fly first class. We could go to I don't know where we'd go. We could go to Catalina Island off the shore of California. We could take limos from the airport over to the helicopter pad, take a helicopter, fly over to the island, rent a place, one of them big white buildings, did that one time, right around the island in golf carts, and we could do all that. Or we could learn how to go have fun with our distributors very inexpensively and put the dream and the belief in them better than anything else we could come up with, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do it. One of the things you always want to be careful of is if you develop a pattern of taking people out to expensive dinners and spending your distributors' money all the time, then you're teaching them a pattern that's going to keep them broker. This is like between seminar and rally or whatever. I would always want to take the distributors out and eat at one of the cheapest places I can find. I'll tell you another thing that you can watch, and this is very interesting. A lot of cases, when you go sit down with people and you have dinner, the people that are the brokest will most of the time order the most expensive meals and not even look at the price on them. The people that watch their dollars the closest, that have more dollars to watch, will be very careful about how much. I still look at the prices on food. Not as bad as I did a long time ago, but I'm still looking at them. So you got to be careful. And everything is an attitude, and it's all the way you think. Most millionaires are common men and women with uncommon thinking. Here's another thing. I want you to listen to this one careful. Well, I deserve a vacation. No, you don't. You can't pay for it. But I deserve to have a new car. No, you don't. You can't pay for it. I'm being a little blunt. You with me? Before you start saying things like that, you better reevaluate. If you've got the money to do that and you've got the time to do it, then yes, it may be true that you can't afford to do it. If you don't, it's not an option. Unless you want to be broke. Okay? Another one I like is, but Mike, I get mean on these, I guess, because, you know, you make a lot of money and your kids start growing up, and you got to be very careful not to spoil those kids. I'm walking around the store the other day, and I got my 4-year-old son with me, and I got him loaded up with everything that we were buying in the grocery store, and I'm carrying nothing. He comes huffing and puffing up the counter, puts everything up there. Woman looked at me like I was a slave driver. Says, how come you're making him carry everything? I said, I want him to learn how to work. And that kind of stuff all the time. You got to be very careful with these kids. Now listen, you're going to hear some of your people say, but man, we've been out there building the business. Our kids deserve to go to Disneyland. They don't deserve nothing. What did they do? You with me? Okay? Now, I know a lot of you are going, hey, that's mean. Well, maybe it is. You want your kids to grow up to be rich little snotty brats? Teach your kids how to work. And teach your kids to be responsible for what happens. Our daughter makes $1.50 an hour. She's 9 years old. She punches in at the office. She's got a time clock card. When she's at that office, if she doesn't work, I want her money docked. I don't want her paid. The other day I go pick her up. This is a couple months ago, I pick her up from school. And by the way, I have a great relationship with my kids. I love my kids a lot. They love me a lot. Same with Valerie. And so don't read anything wrong in what I'm telling you. I picked Jessica up the other day. She got her check, $37 and something. She is excited to go down and open up a checking or a savings account at the bank because I've told her how she could make $1.25 this year on interest. So I go pick her up, and I slipped, and I'm proud of this girl for being 9 years old. I'm only telling you this so that you understand. I slipped. I should have not said this. But I pick her up. I got her check. We're on the way to the bank. I says, honey, I'll tell you what I'll do. When you earn $100, not from a birthday present, not from something somebody did that you didn't earn it, but when you earn $100 and you put it in there, I'll match $100 and put it in that account. I should have never said that to her. What she said to me was, she said, no, Dad, that would still be your $100. When I earn it, we'll put it in the bank and then it'll really be mine. And I couldn't believe that. That was good, okay, for 9 years old. Okay? Never be embarrassed about admitting that you need to change. You should be proud. You should really be proud of that, because once you make some changes, you're going to be good for the rest of your life, and it's going to be fantastic. Don't be resistant to changing your ways for a long-term gain. Don't be resistant to changing your ways for a long-term gain. When a car drops below $1,500, then drop all the collision and comprehensive off it. It is recommended. The more income and the more net worth you have, the larger your deductible should be. When a car gets down to only being worth so much, then drop it. It doesn't make any difference. You're paying for something that it doesn't matter anymore. You follow what I'm saying? You know what the deductible on our coach is? About $40,000 is the deductible. Now, why would it be that the higher your net worth gets and the more income that you have, the higher the deductible is? Because you know what the difference in insurance is on that coach between $40,000 deductible and what is more normal people have, $100 deductible or $500 deductible? You know what the difference is? It's about $20,000 a year difference. You with me? Learn how to look at things in a light that the average person never looks at. You got to remember that. 80% of the people that you know probably have a negative net worth. Can you imagine that? The cheapest car that you're ever going to drive in your whole life is one that you already have paid for. Always be looking at cars everywhere you go, looking in the newspaper, and always checking them out so that you really know what's a good deal and what's not a good deal. People who use a credit card to buy everything and pay the balance off at the end of every month still overspend by 30 to 35%. When you have cash, instead of using credit cards, most people will spend less money because they don't want to give the cash away. I'll tell you something that you want to set a goal to do. You want to set a goal to be more excited about the money that you have in the bank than some new toy you got sitting in the yard. Because, see, once you got the money in the bank, that thing could represent anything that you can get excited about. And you've got complete, total power over that to make a decision of do anything you want with that. And as long as you've got it there, you feel good. I can do anything I want. I could have that boat. I remember Valerie looking at a Jaguar one time, and we're sitting there looking at it, and she says, honey, do you realize that we could cut a check and pay for that? I says, yeah, I realize it, but I'm really excited about having that money in the bank. You with me? It's an attitude. Scott, I don't think any of these guys are agreeing with me anymore. Okay, just a couple things real quick. Always check insurance on any vehicle before you ever buy it, because depending on how that vehicle is classified, the insurance will vary drastically in how much it costs. Just the way that car's coded at the insurance, whatever it is, it could be double because the engine's a little bigger, because it's a two-door, or because it's a model with a lot of horsepower, or whatever. So always check that out. Check insurance agency price. Life insurance should cover, now I won't get into all that. Let's see. Okay. One thing that you ought to do, you ought to really pay attention to this an awful lot, and that is when I talk to people about this, I have a lot of people a year or two later, I see them and they come to me and they say, you know, that day that you talked about all that stuff, I never agreed with a lot of it. You made me mad on some things. Well, we put part of it to work, and that is really the answer of what kind of got us out of debt, because we learned how to budget our money, learned how to pay people off, and we learned a little bit more about how to think towards money. I didn't make this up, by the way. I'd like to take credit for being the rocket scientist, but I got this from other people that had the fruit on the tree. So I don't know how you take all this kind of stuff, but I want to tell you, it is a terrible, rotten feeling when you've got finances hanging over your head, and you're always wondering, you're always nervous, you're wondering if you're going to make it, you're wondering about every bill that shows up, the car engine starts making a little racket, you get nervous about it, the shingles blow off the roof and you're getting all nervous about it, and you're sick, and all of a sudden summer comes, the air conditioning bill goes up, and all that kind of stuff. It is just rotten to have that stuff hanging over your life. So number one, get your act together financially. And number two, build this business like there's no tomorrow, and learn how to dream and chase it. And decide that you're going to chase this dream and you're going to make it happen no matter whatever happens. You're going to build this business regardless. I had a college kid who's writing a paper come and interview me one time, and he says, if it was your last day and you were talking to your son and you were on your deathbed and you were about to go, what would you tell your son as your departing words? And I'd never thought about that, of course, up to that time. And I sit there and I thought for a minute, and I thought, what would I really like my son to do? What would I really like him to do? What would I like him to be? And the words came out, and I said, increase the size of your dream daily and spend the rest of your life chasing it with every breath you've got. God bless you all. We'll see you.